Thank you for joining us. You're watching a career success video from Computer Coach. Computer Coach is a Tampa-based computer training center specializing in helping IT and business professionals add on the skills they need to reach their desired career goals. If you are job searching, in transition, or are looking for guidance, please feel free to reach out to us at www.computercoach.com. Now, let's get started.
All right, everyone, we're going to get started with the content. So if you just joined us, again, I am Suzanne Ricci. I'm the Executive Director at Computer Coach, where we have the privilege of helping individuals add on a variety of technical skills or business skills that they need to land the job roles that they're looking for. At Computer Coach, we host a variety of technical boot camps, certification training courses, and continuing education and upskilling classes for a variety of tech or what we consider tech adjacent, business oriented, but still in the tech world career paths. One of the things that we do at Computer Coach is we have a career services or a job placement department. And in our job placement department, we have a series of webinars that we run. And a few years ago, we decided to open those up to the public. And this is what we have now, our Tuesday Job Search Success webinar series. It is my absolute most fun thing that I do during the week is come on here on Tuesdays at 10 o'clock and get to talk to all of you about what's going on in your job search and how we can make that job search more successful. Today's topic is how to be successful in networking, right? So I am going to take questions at the end. I'll open up for Q&A. You are more than welcome to use the Q&A, which that's the easiest, right? It's in your nav bar, or you can drop them in the chat if you would like, if that's easier for you. So with that, let's get started. So when we talk about networking, right? I know I meet hundreds and hundreds of people. I am out networking all the time. And people tell me all the time, Suzanne, how do you do it? Like, I get so nervous. I get butterflies in my stomach. Like, I don't know. Like, I just don't even know what to say. And let me tell you, everyone, regardless of how experienced you are, you get to that door of the networking event and every single one of us takes a deep breath. Networking is nerve-wracking for most individuals. I rarely meet a person that's like, oh no, I have no nerves when I go out networking, right? And a lot of those nerves come from the fear of being judged, right? Like, well, what if I don't sound as polished as I'd like? What if I get tongue-tied and I mispronounce a word? What if I'm not dressed appropriately? What if everybody else is dressed better than me? What if they have more experience than me? What if they're talking over my head? All of these things go through my head as I'm getting ready to go out networking, and many, many other individuals as well. You are not alone. But a tip that I have found that works for me, and I found this tip years and years and years and years ago, and I still use it to this day, is what we call the Q-tip method. In the Q-tip method, it stands for quit taking it personal. Because the truth is most individuals at networking events are not out there judging you. They're not looking at what shoes you're wearing. They're not looking at if your hair is maybe a little disheveled from the wind or if your makeup is a little smudged. Because truthfully, they're more self-conscious about what you're thinking about them, right? So for a very long time, I had a Q-tip taped to my rearview mirror in my car. And I would look in my rearview mirror as I was getting ready to come out of the car, right? And I would say to myself over and over and over, quit taking it personal. Quit taking it personal. And so some of my customers over the years have translated this into when you're doing online interviews, right? Or when you're networking online. And this is a picture that was sent to me by one of my former customers who was using the Q-tip method. And she had a Q-tip that she placed on her computer during her job search. And she wrote on it, as you can see, quit taking it personal. And every time she looked at it, it just reminded her, when you're out networking, it's not personal. When you're in a job search, it's not personal, right? Most people are not judging you. And that is very, very important to remember. Most people, when you are out networking, are just as nervous as you are. And that is okay, right? We can get through this together. So use the Q-tip. I hope it helps you. So let's talk about where do we go to source networking opportunities? Well, one, There's online sourcing opportunities, right? Depending on where you are in the country, there's a variety of different methods that you can use. Computer Coach is headquartered in Tampa Bay, but we are a national organization. So one of the ways that we like to source different types of networking events, both online and in person, is by using Meetup. Meetup.com is a website that allows individuals to go and create meetups based on certain subjects, and then individuals who also like those same subjects can join the meetup. And then the administrators can post events, they can get together as a group, they can create events, and you can find all kinds of topics, both professional and personal. And we're going to talk about in a minute that networking is not just professional, right? There's networking around us at all times. But on Meetup, if let's say you like kayaking, you can find a kayaking group. And in that kayaking group, it's going to be like-minded individuals and individuals that may be able to grow within your network. Others that you may be able to find things in common with and really strengthen those connections. You'll also find professional types of meetups, like for example, we at Computer Coach host the Tech Success Network, which is our largest meetup, which is a meetup of all individuals who have technical career paths who are interested in their career success, right? And so we post all kinds of online webinars as well as in-person events on our meetups. Another place that you can go to find a variety of different networking events is on Eventbrite. Now, Eventbrite, you can find events, and on Meetup also, some of the events have fees, some of the events are free, but on Eventbrite, you can also find events that are free. You can also find events that are paid events. And at Computer Coach, we have an Eventbrite page. I just shared it in the chat for you, and you can follow us and get notified of any of the events, whether those are online or in person, that we are hosting. You can do searches on Eventbrite. You can search for events the same day, the next week, the weekend, the month, and you can use keywords, and you can start finding networking events that you would be interested in. The other way I love to find networking events is I have a few individuals that are already in my network who I value their opinions. I think they have done a great job with career success, and they take their professional networking very, very serious. So I exchange calendars essentially with them. So every once in a while, I'll call up a few different friends and be like, hey, what's on your calendar for networking? And I find a lot of different events that way. That's a really nice way because I can also then attend events that I know individuals at, and I can also invite individuals to events that I'm attending. So find some networking buddies, right? Find some individuals that are out networking, and then share what events you found, what events had they found, and maybe you'll find some common ground that can help you develop or strengthen your networking relationship. So our 3 tips today for ways to source jobs are meetup.com. You can find all different types of professional and personal topics. And here's the thing about Meetup. If you are interested in a topic and there isn't a meetup out there for it, go ahead and create that meetup for your local area. There's probably people hoping that there was a meetup on that same exact topic. Eventbrite is a great way to find events, right? You can search by keyword, by today, by the weekend, by the upcoming month, and then also by sharing calendars with individuals that you know are out networking and really putting purpose into their networking schedule. I will tell you, most people who have a really serious networking schedule are happy to share their schedule with you on where they're going because they are serious about networking and they would love to have individuals at the events that they already know, right? It makes it just a little bit safer. Again, everybody gets nervous when they're out networking. All right, so when we are at networking events, it's really important that we plan, right? What is our purpose for going to the variety of networking events? For me, I generally have 2 different types of goals when I'm out at networking events. One is to strengthen current relationships, and 2 is to create new relationships. So in my network, I have my network, which is very large, right? I network a lot. I've been doing the same thing for 23 years. I've been helping tech professionals with their careers. So I have a very large network. But then I have what I call my trusted network. And when I am going out to various events, I make sure I sit down ahead of the event, even if I'm in my car, right? I'm by myself and I'm creating a plan. Who would I like to strengthen a relationship with if I know who's going to be at the event? And sometimes I know who's going to be at the event because some event publishers will publish who's attending, right? So who do I want to strengthen? Or how many individuals do I want to build relationships with? And then after having this plan, I can come up with micro goals for both of those overall goals, and it helps me to be more successful at the event. So if I want to strengthen a relationship with two individuals, so then I walk into the event and I'm like, okay, well, my goal is to strengthen my relationship with two individuals today. So I look around and I see, who do I already know at the event, right? And I can start with that. Well, then I can go over, I can have a conversation. Maybe I strengthen the event by inviting them to another event. Maybe I strengthen the relationship by asking them to have coffee with me because we already know each other, right? So it's not so awkward. Or I remember from the last time that we met, or that I saw this individual, that their child was playing in a large baseball tournament, and I can ask about that baseball tournament, right? So for me, being able to strengthen relationships is one goal at networking events. And then the second goal for me is being able to establish or create new relationships, right? And depending on the different types of events, I will then determine what type of individuals is it that I need to connect with. Am I looking to connect with startup founders? Do I have an event at Computer Coach that maybe I need sponsors for? So I'm looking to build relationships with possible sponsors. Am I looking to build relationships with individuals who have open job opportunities that we can use in our job placement department? Am I looking to build relationships with individuals who can be a guest speaker? So in my mind, I set up like, okay, I am going to the data science meetup for Tampa Bay. Well, I know I would love to meet one individual that has a job opportunity and one individual who can be a guest speaker. Those can be my goals for going to that particular event. So two different types of goals when I'm at the event. One, strengthening relationships, and two, building new relationships. Now, one thing I don't do is I don't beat myself up. Let's say I say to myself, you know what, meeting 5 new contacts today would be phenomenal. But if I don't meet 5, I don't say to myself, oh, I can't believe you didn't meet 5. 5 is just my goal so that when I'm there, I am there with intention and I am there with purpose, right? But there's a lot of different ways that I judge my networking events to be successful or not. Sometimes I go to networking events and I end up talking to one person for almost the entire event, but I've had such a meaningful conversation. And this person has gone from someone I didn't know when I walked into the door to really being in my trusted network at this point because I've had that type of conversation with them. And that's okay too. So I like to set goals, but I am very fluid with my goals because I realize that not everything is within my control at a networking event. So one of the things about networking events that people ask me quite a bit is, Suzanne, what do I say to people? So when we're going to networking events, we need to participate. It's really important, right? It's very easy to show up to the networking event and kind of just stand on the side and like just look at our phone and be like, oh, wow. But that really wasn't a successful event, right? Just showing up doesn't make it successful. So when we're actually out networking, what I like to do ahead of time is one, I read a lot. And one of the things that I find very helpful is being up to date with what is going on around me. So I read my local business journal. I read my business journal every day, the online version. I love to read the business journal because it tells me so much about what's going on in my local area. And then when I'm out meeting people, I meet people at events that work at companies I just read an article about, or maybe they're in the same industry that was just covered in the business journal. And that's a great springboard for me into having conversations. The other thing that I do before, maybe I'm going to a content specific event, right? And I will read, I'll look, is there an association? Let's say we'll use the data science example again, right? So is there a data science association? Well, if there is, then I'll jump on their website and I'll look at what they have going on. I'll see if they have any newsletters that I can pull up and read about. So I always like to read content specific things before I go into a networking event that is content specific. Maybe I'll Google, if I'm going to the AWS meetup, what's going on with AWS, latest news for Amazon or something like that, so that I have some nuggets that I can talk to if it's appropriate, right? So I always want to make sure that I do research before attending any networking event so that I have some type of items that I can use as a springboard to go into other types of conversations, right? The other thing is I really like to know what's going on in pop culture, because there are different types of events that different things are going to come up. Like if I'm at a Working Women of Tampa Bay event, I know I can comfortably talk about the Barbie movie. And I can talk about the Barbie movie just grossed over $1 billion, right? And I can talk to people about, hey, did you see the movie? And I know I'm going to find people there that did. Now, maybe that's not a topic I would bring up at the data science meetup, but knowing what's going on in pop culture also is a great helper in creating conversations. Now, my best tip for being able to create conversations and develop affinity is actually something that I learned in the Dale Carnegie course. And Dale Carnegie writes the book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. That's the most popular book that Dale Carnegie has written. But actually, there's quite a few books that Dale Carnegie has written. And there's the Dale Carnegie, I guess they're like training centers that you can take classes at. And in the Dale Carnegie class, they teach you how to develop conversations. And they have the conversation stack. And the conversation stack is a logical order that you can move through in developing a conversation with individuals so that the conversation flows and so that it makes sense. Now, if you don't know the conversation stack, on YouTube, one of the Dale Carnegie franchise owners has video recorded himself going over the conversation stack. I'll see if I can find the video when we're done doing questions and answers, and I'll post it in there if I can. But finding that video and watching that video, I highly recommend, because it is a logical order that just makes sense. So if maybe I didn't have time to do research, or maybe I don't really know much about the topic of the networking event that I'm in, but I still want to be able to have conversations with people, I fall back on my conversation stack by starting with simply just introducing my name, right? Or asking someone else, what is their name? And then asking them like, hey, where are you from? Or what part of town do you live in, right? That's a natural conversation starter. And what I'm doing is I'm looking to build affinity or find something that I have in common with this person. So let's say I am there at a networking event and I say, hi, I'm Suzanne Ricci. And somebody says, hi, I'm Joe Smith. I say, hey, Joe, hey, where are you from? And Joe, maybe I was thinking that question was, what part of town are you in? But I didn't really word it like that, right? I just said, where are you from? But being in Florida, I mean, it's so transient. So almost nobody is from Florida, right? So Joe says to me, oh, I'm from Cincinnati. And I go, oh, you know what? I spent almost every summer as a kid in Cincinnati. What part, right? And now all of a sudden, Joe and I have something in common. And Joe and I can start the conversation from there. And now it's not awkward, right? Because now I can ask other questions like, oh, well, what brought you to Tampa? Oh, your job. Where are you working? Oh, cool. What do you like most about that? And now it's a natural conversation, right? As compared to me going up to someone and saying, hi, I'm Suzanne Ricci. Do you have kids? That would be awkward, right? Totally weird and not something you would ever do. So the conversation stack is a great way to logically build a conversation in a non-awkward way. Highly recommend that. So our tips today for getting out there and participating. One, I'm going to fall back on my Q tip. Quit taking it personal. I promise you, most people are not judging you. They're more concerned with what you are thinking about themselves than they are thinking about you. Two, make sure you do research. Be up to date on current events, on what's going on in your industry. Sign up for your industry association newsletters. You can get them for free. Even if you're not a paid member, they'll still send you their emails. And then also using the conversation stack to be able to establish conversation in a non-awkward way. All right. So we talked about a little bit earlier that when I am at networking events, I like to actually have a plan and a purpose, right? So we talked about that having two different goals for me. Maybe you have different. But one thing I want to point out is there's different types of networking events. At networking events, maybe you're at a conference. So not a traditional networking where it's like a happy hour where you're just going to, have an opportunity to talk to people, but maybe there's an exhibit hall and then there's talks going on that you need to be at, and then maybe there's a luncheon. And so with that, that's a completely different plan, right? And it's a completely different purpose. Maybe I am at this conference because I need content to further develop my career. Maybe this conference is part of my continuing education, but at the same time, I want to take advantage and I want to meet some new individuals. So every type of networking event is going to have a different plan and a different purpose for you, and that is okay. Sometimes I'll get asked, well, Suzanne, I would love to network within my organization. I don't necessarily want to network outside of my organization. How do I really love the organization that I work for, and I would love to climb the ranks in this organization. And that is wonderful. That is a great plan and a wonderful purpose, right? So what we need to do is be very strategic about it. So how large is the organization is what I would start with in that particular situation. And then I would say, let's make a plan to meet one individual within each department. And we can invite that individual out to have lunch with us, right? Or to have coffee, or ask that person if they're, willing to take a walk around the building, right? And then you can use those tips for creating conversation that we just talked about. So every type of networking event that you're going to is going to have a different plan and a different purpose for you, and that's okay. The most important thing is creating those goals ahead of time. The reason why I like to establish goals is so that I have a purpose when I'm going in, right? If not, maybe I'll just get too caught up with looking at really cool swag, right? And I won't be mindful about my reason for being in this exhibit hall right now. I'd like to meet 4 different companies that work within sustainable energy so that we can build those types of job roles at Computer Coach, for example, right? And so if that is a goal that I could obtain from this particular conference that I'm at, then that is something that I would plan out in my mind. So making sure that you are being purposeful, having intent when you're going into networking events is really very important. All right. So we talked a little bit about earlier. So who do you want to meet? Making sure the list could go on, right? And this list is going to be very different for every single individual. And then breaking down that list into, we talked about being able to strengthen or meet new individuals. Making sure that you're updating your plan as you go is really very, very important. So let's say you get there and you've met 5 individuals and you have business cards, you had great conversations, you're going to remember who they are. That's how we know that we've had a great conversation. We're going to email, we're going to be able to follow up. And you know what? Well, now it's time to update our plan. We met 5 individuals. Now it's time to move on to meeting 5 more individuals, right? I like to make very small, manageable goals when I'm at networking events so that I'm not completely overwhelmed. If I start off saying, you know what, I want to meet 10 individuals today, and then I get in there and there's only 6 people there, well, then I'm going to fall short of my goal. So making sure that my goal is manageable and something that is specific, right? Using the SMART technique, something that I can measure and obtain, then I can increase my goal as I go, upgrade my plan. So when it comes to networking, it's always great to be dressed for success. But I'm assuming you probably know the industry that you're in, so you probably know what's acceptable and what's not. It's always better to be overdressed than underdressed, right? But for example, if I'm going to an event that is like tech startup founders, I know there's going to be people there in jeans. I know that there's going to be people there with maybe a blazer on and their jeans or a polo shirt. And some of them are going to have on graphic tees and Chuck Taylors. And that's okay, right? Everybody has to be true and authentic to their own professional brand, which we do talk about professional branding at Computer Coach. We have webinars on that as well, if that's something you're interested in. However, it's always better to be dressed one level above what is expected than to be dressed below. So keep that in mind. I also know that different events cater to different types of dress, right? Like I know my working women professional events generally are dressed a little bit more professional than some of my tech events that maybe are outside in August on the front lawn of Armature Works, right? I know that can be a very casual event because it is hot, right? But I know that my working women professionals of Tampa Bay is going to be a more professional event, right? It's going to be at the Mahaffey Theater, and I know that I'm going to need to be able to dress a little bit above. Now, if you have a networking buddy who maybe has been to the event before, then it's always great to be able to ask somebody like, hey, what's the dress code? If you're going to a conference, they almost always publish the dress code on conference websites, so make sure you're looking for that. But if you're in your industry, you should know, if you're in law, for example, the legal field, it's probably going to be a more professional networking than if you are in the tech startup world. So let's talk about some tips for when we are at the networking event, right? So name tags. The best thing I love to do when I get there is kind of look around and scan the room really quick and see like, what are other people putting on their name tags? Are they putting just their first name? Are they putting their first name, their last name? Are they putting their company? Are they putting their title? So for the most part, I just like to put Suzanne. One, Suzanne is a longer name, right? So if I had to put my first name and my last name, then it's kind of small and then people may not be able to see it. And then they're like coming really close to me to like look at what my name tag says, right? So I generally will just put Suzanne, but I do like to look around and see, okay, what is everybody else putting? And then I love to put like a conversation starter, like hacker superhero, or ask me about my dog, or, VNP, which stands for very nice person, because people will always ask me like, oh, what's VNP? And I'm like, oh, very nice person, but it's a great conversation starter, right? So adding a conversation starter, if you're comfortable to your name tag, can really help start the conversation. Now, here's the thing. If you put on your name tag, ask me about my cat, please be prepared to talk about your cat. I cannot tell you the number of times I have been at networking events where the event hosts themselves will do this, right? Add a conversation starter to your name tag, or they'll pass out stickers that are conversation starters, and people will put these conversation starters on either their name tags or just a sticker on their shirt or their blazer or whatever they're wearing. And then you ask them and they're like, oh, that's just what they gave me. And then like the conversation falls flat, right? And so you don't really want your conversations to fall flat. So if you are going to take a conversation starter, please be prepared to start a conversation with it, right? They're there to help you springboard. So when we're inside the networking events, where to stand, right? That's a great question. So you never want to stand by the front door because people generally, they've gotten the confidence to open the door. They've gotten the confidence to walk in the door, and they're usually like in the event, right? They're not generally standing by the front door. And that's also a lot of times where the registration is, and you don't necessarily want to be there. You can stand somewhere around a drink station, which is always nice, not too close, but not too far away from it. And you never want to stand like pinpoint in the middle of the room. Like you want to be offset to the middle because it just makes conversations easier. So easy ways to start a conversation are if you're in line. That's one. Also, if you have a conversation starter on your name tag, people will use it to start conversations with you. So that's another easy way to start conversations. But in a line is always an easy way to start a conversation, right? Start off with that, hey, I'm Suzanne. Oh, nice to meet you, Joe. Hey, Joe, where are you from? Right? Very easy conversation, especially if you're in Florida, because nobody is from Florida. I actually am though, so funny enough. All right. And then when you are in the networking event, it's easy to go into a group of two and make the perfect triangle to be the third person, but you don't want to walk into a group of more than like two unless you're invited. So if there's already the perfect conversation triangle, don't go and make it a square and be the fourth person, right? Find two people who are talking together and then, see if you can insert yourself into that conversation if there's not somebody by themselves. Finding somebody by themselves and starting a conversation, well, that makes two. And then also, I'm going to add to this, don't hesitate to invite people in, right? Everybody feels awkward at networking events, right? And starting conversations with people you don't know, it's not that easy. So you can really shine and elevate your brand by being that person that invites others in and, introduces yourself and then gets the conversation going. you can really stand out. All right, so we do want to make sure that when we are networking, that we are sharing our contact information or getting contact information, right? We are there to build our network. Ideally, we want to move people from our networks into our trusted network. And to do that, we need to build relationships and have conversations. So one, I always like to send a LinkedIn request right from the time that I am like talking to the individual. Like I'll always just say, hey, can we connect on LinkedIn? And then I'll open my phone and connect with them. And that's really easy for me because then I can go back into my phone the next day and I can look at my recent connections under my network, and I can then follow up with messages and I know who I met, right? Because I can look at the date that I connected with them. I also will ask people to connect with me. So this way I have to accept the connection request. And by accepting the connection request, then I can then go into my network, right, and see who did I connect with most recently as well. Or prior to accepting their networking connection request, I can go and check out their profile and then accept the connection request. So LinkedIn, I love using LinkedIn for networking. You always want to follow up with an email or a LinkedIn message. Really important. Statistically, only 20% of people follow up from networking. And that is the key, is by taking individuals and moving them to your trusted network. So another way that you can connect is by having a digital business card. So digital business cards have become pretty popular out at networking events recently. And digital business cards are another way that you can keep track of who you've met and you don't have to necessarily lose, business cards. And then my final tip for sharing contact information is I am still a traditional business card type of person. So I still like to take business cards and I like to have business cards. But when I'm at networking events, I actually keep them strategically in two different pockets. So one, make sure when I'm picking out something to wear that I have two pockets so that I can put my business cards in my left pocket and business cards that I collect in my right pocket. So this way I'm not accidentally fumbling through business cards and dropping someone's card or giving out the wrong card. And yes, I have done both of those, which is why I now have a plan and a tactic for not dropping cards or giving out the wrong card. So making sure that if you are collecting business cards, traditional printed business cards, then make sure that, if it's a morning event, your same day, programming them into your contacts, or the next day or that evening if it's possible for you. You just don't want to lose the momentum, because I understand that tomorrow is going to be a whole different day and a whole different set of requests. And if you forget to follow up on the individuals that you've met, your networking efforts were kind of wasted. And so following up is the key. So we have a concept called ABN, right? Always be networking. And this I put into the presentation today because I just want to point out to everyone that networking goes on all around us at all times. People will say to me, Suzanne, I don't have time to network. I'm so busy in my life. And I'll say, really? So tell me, what's an average day for you like? And, then I hear about, oh, well, my daughter has to be at dance at 4:30 and my son has to be at soccer at 6. And I say, okay, well, are there other parents there? Because those are all networking events. If you are in your local house of worship, those are networking events for you, right? Those are individuals that you can meet, that you may be able to strengthen the relationships and move into your trusted network, right? So when you're out and about, there's networking events. I have started talking to people at the grocery store. I was taking cooking classes at one point and I was paired up with somebody else in the class. And that person ended up being the CIO for a large local company in Tampa, which was a great connection for me, right? And here I was at a personal enhancement course, right? Learning to cook. I was at Publix Aprons cooking school. It wasn't even like, an actual structured program where I was getting a credential at the end. I was just signed up for a 2-hour cooking class at Aprons and made a great connection and followed up and asked for a connection, followed up and then strengthened that relationship, right? So always be networking. There are networking opportunities around us all the time. So let's talk about some online networking tips, and then we're going to open up for some questions. So one, when you are online, make sure you are dressing the part. Even though you are online, you still need to be camera ready. I cannot understand when people come onto networking events and then will say to me, oh, I'm so sorry, I'm not camera ready. Well, it is 10 o'clock in the morning. If you were not job searching, if you were working, you would be ready for work. And that is something that you just want to keep on when you are in a job search. You don't want to let yourself, start to sleep in, start to slack off. Get up every morning and make sure you are dressing the part. You want to make sure you turn your cameras on if possible at a networking event. I know some online events don't allow you to turn cameras on, but you do want to be able to turn your camera on if it's possible. It's going to strengthen your relationships. You want to make sure that if you are on an online networking event, you are taking advantage of the opportunities that are presented to you by adding comments in the chat, right? As the event is going on, add comments because that's how you're going to stand out. On online networking events, you need to stand out more than if you were in person because you have to find a way to create conversations. So ask conversations live, use your reactions, drop your contact into the chat, connecting with individuals. A LinkedIn message, look, if you don't like the individual, then you don't have to talk to them again, right? Most importantly, when you are online networking or when you are in-person networking, make sure you're having fun networking. If networking is really something that you just find to be very stressful and it is not fun for you and it is overly uncomfortable, well then there's other strategies that you can use. Actually, there are introvert networking coaches if you are introverted. But you shouldn't engage in something that really isn't fun or meaningful for you. So do make sure that you are having fun when you're out networking. If it's maybe the group you don't like, I always like to give every networking group at least 2 chances. So let's say I go to a networking event and I'm like, oh, I did not get along. Like these were just not my type of people. I always like to go back at least a second time because maybe the first time I was off. Maybe the event was off. Maybe really it's just not my type of people. And that's okay. But I like to give at least every event at least 2 tries. So we do have some networking resources available at Computer Coach. They're available to you for free. Just reach out to me and ask me for the networking resources that we talked about in today's presentation. And because I do a lot of presentations, please tell me specifically what the resources are that you're looking for. Tell me how I can help you. The resources that we have available today is an article called Love to Network and then 40 ideas that you can post on LinkedIn because LinkedIn is a big networking opportunity, especially for job seekers. So at Computer Coach, we do host free career strategy sessions. So if you want to talk about where you're at in your job search, where you've been, where you want to go, you can set up a time. We do free career strategy sessions to help you figure out, do you have the skills and the plan to land the roles that you're looking for? Now, of course, we would love for you to become a Computer Coach customer, but if it's not right for you, that is okay. We still want you to come to our webinars. We still want you to come to our networking events, and we still want to be friends, right? So to find out about our other events that we host, we have a Tuesday job search success series almost every Tuesday at 10 o'clock. On Thursdays, we have a guest speaker series. We bring in talent acquisition, individuals within HR, hiring managers to talk about job search strategies. And on Friday, we host a technical guest speaker series. All of these are posted on Eventbrite. They're available online. They're free and they're open to the public. Now, we also host in-person events. If you were in the Tampa Bay area, our in-person events, we host them almost monthly and they're also listed on our Eventbrite. So we'd love to see you out in person if you're comfortable in in-person networking. So again, scan the QR code, follow us on Eventbrite so you can be notified about all the awesomeness we have coming up. And then you can follow us on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is where we post a lot of content-specific content for individuals in a job search, technical career paths, tech-adjacent career paths, and you can follow us and really help move your career towards career success. That is our ultimate goal at Computer Coach, helping individuals move toward their defined career success. With that, here is my contact information. I will drop it in the chat again, and I am going to stop the share and open up for questions.
To learn more about our training programs, classes, and what sets us apart, please visit our website at www.computercoach.com.